Welcome to the After Spin. Additional comments from our panelists just available on our website. I want to ask each of you, what do you wish you had said on last week's show, but either didn't get the time to or didn't think of? Rufus Edmiston, I'll start with you.
Well, when we were talking about not trying 16, 17 years old in adult courts, I mentioned the Youth Legislative Assembly. That's a group of young people that get together every year, and they pretend to be legislators. And sometimes I think, Leo, they might do a better job than some of the legislators. It's a great group, and I have been proud to be a leader in 2 sessions, and they were predicting the passage of this solid legislation. Now they want to know if we start not trying 16 and 17-year-olds, should we have a parole board for them? That was from the council.
Interesting. Chris Fitzsimon, what do you wish you'd have said on last week's show?
Well, we talked about the voter ID, the decision by the Supreme Court not to take the writ of certiorari on the voter ID and other voting changes bill. And John mentioned the footnote about the Daily Show. What he didn't mention, the Fourth Circuit also pointed out that what the General Assembly asked for information when they were putting this law together, which came out in the court case, about which segments of the population which use which voting methods most frequently. All the ones they picked were used most frequently by African Americans. Maybe that was a coincidence, maybe it's not, but there were data points in the Fourth Circuit decision. It just was not rewriting history or taking over a lower court's ruling. There really was data in there that I think the General Assembly is going to have to wrestle with and pass a much narrower bill if it's going to hold up.
Go through the courts and get approval. John Hood, what do you wish you'd have said on last week's show?
Well, I wish I had said something nice about Rufus Edmiston, but I really couldn't think of anything. So, I wish I had. But,
he just got inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame,
oh,
for
that's
Pete's
what I
sake.
meant to mention. That's what I meant to mention, the boxing connection. But speaking of sparring,
to whoop you.
Okay, you probably win. Speaking of sparring, Chris mentioned something else the Fourth Circuit talked about, which was a request from the legislature about the use of different voting methods by race. If they hadn't asked for that information, that would have been a potential problem with the Voting Rights Act. In other words, they have to ask for that information. They absolutely have to ask for that information. That's a good example of how odd the Fourth Circuit decision was. They took a request that was necessary and turned it into evidence of discrimination. Odd. Now, I'm not arguing, I don't favor all the pieces that were in that bill. I'm not arguing about the substance of the changes, some of which I agree and some of which I don't agree. But I think it is frankly outrageous. Outrageous that this case did not go to the Supreme Court because a newly elected Attorney General who should have recused himself entirely from the issue pretended he was representing the state, which he wasn't. That office was not representing the state solely. They already had private counsel representing the state. He yanked the case, and that was a mistake.
Outrageous, I say, outrageous. Leo Daughtry, what do you wish you'd have said on last week's show?
Well, I would say something really good about my county, Johnston County. We have 2 great pharmaceutical companies that are expanding to the tune of over $2 billion and 2,000 new jobs. And that's really good for my county, and I want to brag on them.
Interesting. Very good. All right. Well, thanks for watching the After Spin. We'll have more video all during the week on ncspin.com.